What if the parts of you that you feel like you hate are actually parts that are trying to help you? IFS, Internal Family Systems, was created by Dick Schwartz and is a therapeutic modality that has grown considerably in recent years. And in this podcast, I sit down with Kevin O'Neill to talk about IFS, what it means to him, and even use examples from the sessions that Kevin ran with me and him. I had some mega experiences over the sessions that I did with Kevin, and we explore them in this episode that really helps bring to life what internal family systems really is and how it can work in your life. So if you're new to IFS or you already know a lot about IFS, this podcast is for you. We get quite emotional throughout it as we dive into some of the experiences that I had. And Kevin brings his wealth of knowledge about IFS. And you can find out all about Kevin down in the show notes and find out ways of working with Kevin if you'd like to jump into IFS yourself. But for now, sit back and enjoy this episode. It really is a powerful one. Dysfunction is everywhere. In our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can't or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution. Okay, here we go. I am joined today by Kevin O'Neill. And Kevin, I am very excited to have you here. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Having done a great session with you and the Men is Uncommon Men last night, we're all very buzzy looking at the chat this morning on WhatsApp.
I haven't managed to get in there yet, actually, in the chat. Are you one of the OGs from Uncommon Man? How long have you been going?
3 years since it was around the corner from me in Borough.
Oh yeah, okay. So you've been there since the very beginning.
I've been to about 30, and frankly, they've changed my life. I'll say that just up front.
Really? In what way do you think they've changed your life?
I think the body, the just listening to your body and allowing that whole permission of what happens in the room and feeling a massive joy from just kind of my own resources. And you are democratizing it. You'll actually say, you can do this. This is just you. I'm just encouraging you to breathe in a certain way. And your tears are welcome. All of your messaging is here's permission, guys. And so I was hooked from 3 years ago. I don't think I've missed very many. I'll make an effort to be there every first Tuesday. Yeah. Love it.
And you know what it's done for me is built true connection with men like I have with you, right? Because like if I think about like our friendship and like we're going to go on to talk about our sort of coaching relationship with you as my coach that we've gone on to have more recently. But like when I think of just our friendship for a moment, like I won't talk specifically about what we talked about. You might not even remember it, you know, because things sometimes land in moments, don't they? But we were in a sharing circle once, me and you and somebody else, and you shared something and it was like, wow, you know, about, you know, your life, and it was a similar experience to mine, and we have that shared experience. And you know, I've gone deep with you as a friend, you know, just, you know, me, you, and another fella just in a sharing circle, you know, and like there's bonds like that I know before Uncommon Man, I never had bonds like that with men. Do you know what I mean? I never had that.
It's mad that you had to make like a space for people like you. We're all like you. We all have stuff that needs to be shared and witnessed by others, and we want to be witnessed, and we want to witness other people. And you make it clear you're not here to help people, you're not here to solve people's issues, you're just here to witness them. So I do remember that. It was in the corner of the Uncommon Man in Liverpool Street, and it was one of those. There's no censoring happening here, and we're not looking for being fixed. We're just acknowledging our lives. So it was very powerful. I didn't forget that the community that you built is amazing. I've seen you out in like churches and the ministry near me, Ministry of Sound, I should say, in case people think you've become a cult leader or something.
I'm sure some people do think that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's put that to bed. Yeah, you weren't wearing robes and sacrificing a goat on the altar. Like in the Ministry of Sound, walking into a group of people who don't know you from Adam, probably, and just getting people talking and interacting. Community is, yeah, it's a part of people having a great life. So too might
Yeah.
be having friends that you can talk to. Well, that definitely, but so too might be, seeking help where it's appropriate. But you can do a hell of a lot with among friendship group, uh, people who come together with an open mind. A ton, as you know, you're living it.
Yeah. And I think it needs to be true community as well. So I hope that what I do with both my sort of mixed gendered events and with Uncommon Man is you don't have to be anything. And I do think this is a bit of a problem in a lot of the spaces in this sort of space, in like the healing space, the kind of men's workspace, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of them feel like they come with a lot of rules and a lot of like, you got to be this way and like this is how you fit in, and if you don't, you'll be ostracized. And what I've always tried to do at the center of any space that I create is like, nah, there is no rule. Like, I'm not going to dictate what I believe is right because I don't fucking know what's right for me, let alone what's right for you, and that's what I've always, and I think we do that in Uncommon Man. I do think that's what makes it different to a lot of the other things out there.
All sorts of men will come, and I kind of acknowledge anybody who runs through the door for the first time of a building opposite Liverpool Street, McDonald's, and goes, "What the hell am I doing here?" My mate thinks it's going to be great for me. Maybe my wife gave me a nudge towards it. They're still showing up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, as you know, well, they say it, don't they, at the start of the sessions? This is my maintenance. This is where I need to be me, and I can be me. So kudos to you, mates. And I know it's morning after, and here you are again, looking kind of bright-eyed, kind of bushy-tailed.
Kind of.
Yeah,
Kind of
well,
bright-eyed, kind of bushy-tailed.
as best as we can. How about that?
As best as we can. Well, you look amazing as well, Kevin, I must say. I must always say, especially in your No Bad Parts t-shirt, which I absolutely love, which is a nice segue. So why don't we start a little bit? Just tell us, just to give people a bit of an opportunity to understand you. I think what they will have noticed, and I know it's only a podcast, so a lot of people will only be listening. Some might be watching it on YouTube, but you definitely have a very calming, safe aura about you naturally. So I'll say that. But why don't you, in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I am 61. I'm going to own that because I think if you survive to 61 with all the ups and downs, just nice to say it.
Yeah.
And we do live in there are some, people can see 60 plus as a whole set of traits, but it's not necessarily. I suspect if I live another 20 years, the next 20 years will be my best 20 years. So just want to say that. I studied coaching. I did a course 20 years ago when it was really actually quite a difficult thing to do. It seems a bit weird and a bit American, but it felt right. And since then, I've done coaching. Often friends would say my kids, my teens are needing an outsider, like maybe said somebody calm to just speak with and feel safe with and tell anything with. They're not barely talking to me. A dad might say, it's grunts eating pasta and playing PlayStation. If you can get the little, what, to talk about life, you're doing us all a good favor. So I've been doing it kind of on the side for ages. My main jobs have been like consulting and asking questions. I'm a very curious person. Oh, in every way, not just the asking questions way. I'm just very curious.
Yeah.
And only in the last couple of years have I started to be a trainee psychotherapist, and to find IFS and that model of IFS, internal family systems. You're going to keep me straight on jargon, aren't you? Because it's very easy to.
I'll pick up
IFS
if I need to. Yeah, internal family systems. We're going to dive right into it, so we'll make sure people understand it. Yeah.
parts work. When I first got some therapy with parts work and read the book or books from Dick Schwartz, the founder, I felt this is exactly how I am. I absolutely get that there's a part of me that says, be brave, do something completely scary because you know when you do it, it's great. But there's another part of me yearning for like safety and more of the same and the patterns of being a bit small. So I just felt very naturally that we are more than just one solid block. We are what's called we're a multitude of different patterns of thinking, of acting, patterns of emotion, and they're all there. I didn't I wasn't influenced by the movie Inside Out, but I think a lot of people have come to parts work by Riley's fear, anger, disgust, joy, sadness, kind of how they're all
Was the film influenced by that? Do you know? Was the film influenced by IFS?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was. It
yeah.
was like, yeah, okay.
It was actually quite an educational thing to have kids. I don't know what age Riley is, but she's young. Understand that these emotions, these big emotions, will come and go, and you kind of need them all. No bad parts. You do need them all. You do need fear, for goodness sake. You do need fear. You wouldn't want to banish fear because it's important on occasion, but you don't want to be ruled by it. You want to have a self that's solid and calm and courageous and has 8 Cs. So I think IFS came into my life. I've been on the annual conference remotely last year. I've done my training as on the online circle with Dick Schwartz and friends. Now studying to be an IFS informed coach. So I'm not a therapist. I might be in the future an IFS one, but yeah, that's me so far. And I've had my ups and downs, I suppose. Yeah, well, like we've discussed, life's not been rosy all the time. I've learned, I've lived, and survived.
So, was there like something that pushed you into IFS? So you started training. Are you still training as a psychotherapist?
Yes.
Because I remember that we had a conversation, let's say, at Uncommon Man once. And was there a moment that pushed you into IFS? Is it something separate? Does it become part of your psychotherapy? How do you view that?
That's a big question. You are awake first thing in the morning. Bloody hell. I think the classical training from Freud through Jung and all the heroes is a good grounding to be a psychotherapist. But I'll be honest, I'm a little bit torn by the idea that people will have the time, money, energy to see a psychotherapist over many years sometimes. So like I said earlier, community, mutual support from people who are open and frank with you, and more lighter approaches are pulling me into their approach right now. Saying that, I'm sticking with my psychotherapy education training as well.
Do you think that, like, and just thinking about some of the things that you've already said, do you think that we have a little bit of a problem in the West with, there was a way that you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a way that you said, like, we need all of these things. We need fear, right? We need sadness. I mean, when you think about the first Inside Out film, particularly, the whole film is based around, don't get rid of your sadness. It's vitally important that you have it and that you listen to it. Like, and I know that hopefully we'll get into it as we talk more about internal family systems, but do you think like the Western model as it is gets a little bit caught up in sort of over pathologizing some of those emotions as if the presence of them is a problem in itself?
I think when you can be judged by professionals to be grieving too long, I think we're on a dodgy wicket right there.
Yeah.
I think also I'm a gay man. I know that the American Psychological Association, I think it was, had this big vote not that long ago that made gay being not a pathology.
It's in the 60s.
Yeah, in my lifetime. So I
Yeah.
think I think it's nice to just remember that. So in answer to your question, I'm uneasy at the medicalization and the credentialization of everything, and I like the spirit of IFS that says there are no bad parts. Everything you've got about you, the self is there forever. It's our humanity, it's our soul, and it can be obscured by good parts and bad parts. Parts can come in, you might call them bad, but they've come in for a reason, for an intent. And it's a very nice model because you're saying, I'm not saying goodbye to sadness. I'm not trying to chase away the anger I have. You know, I'm trying to approach it with humanity and see what's caused it, what it's trying to do for me. Even things like addictions. I spent the last weekend before last in Dublin at the Recovery Reimagined uh, uh, weekend. It was kind of run by people in recovery and with people from IFS. Even addictions, if you can approach your addiction, the impact might be catastrophic and often is towards the end for people. But the intent is for you to shield yourself from something that is, it's called an exile in our world, that is really, really worse. If you can keep that mindset, I think that's a very healing mindset to take. You know, you're not your part. You can always go back to a self which is healed, will always be healed, and is always available to you. And you don't necessarily need a barrage of people on the outside, as you say, pathologizing how you've coped and how you've got to where you are today. So I think it's a very optimistic model. I'm kind of fanboying people like Dick Schwartz, who founded it. But it seems very humane, very non-judgmental, non-pathologizing. Yeah.
And very loving. It's very like what it gives you, I feel, is the ability to recognize there's an issue with the way, the part of you that's showing up strongly potentially in any given moment, while simultaneously loving that it's trying for you. So where the generic Western model might go, and I'm going to oversimplify here, but just to maybe, arguably not oversimplify, but maybe oversimplify a little bit. But the Western model might say, your sadness is too big and you felt it for too long, so there's something wrong with you and your body's failing and we must fix it. Whereas IFS will say, this sadness feels really big and feels really strong. Let's try and figure out what it's trying to achieve, why it's trying to achieve it, love it, and then come back to the part of you that's been there all along that's still healed.
Yeah.
And it really allows for that self-love and compassion.
Yeah.
In a way the other model doesn't. And what's interesting, my healing journey, should we call it that, I come originally from a 12-step background. I still go as regularly as I can to recovery meetings so I can be around other alcoholics, and they do the 12 steps, and one of the steps says when we're wrong we promptly admit it. And I realized recently, as I was listening to people talk about that step, and I don't know if this is just true of addicts, I think it's true of people in general, or true of a lot of people. We're so quick to beat ourselves up as if, so when we say we're wrong, we promptly admit it. We just look all these ways that we're wrong. And I thought to myself, do you know when I'm wrong the most and when I need to promptly admit it is how often when I make a genuine human mistake, how I jump straight to believing that makes me an awful person. And what I need to promptly admit is that I'm not an awful person because I got it wrong,
Wow. Absolutely. The shame that a lot of people carry is just debilitating. I mean, there's a quick definition of the difference between guilt and shame, which I often use with people.
Hmm.
I don't know if I did with you, but shall I give it? Because
Give it to me.
I
Yeah.
think it's helpful. Guilt is if you kick your dog, maybe by mistake, and it whimpers, you feel guilty because of that action. Shame is far more corrosive. It's a, I am not worthy. It's I can't be me. Being me isn't being right. Guilt is a great emotion because it can give you like a little steer that discomfort is real. I'm going to lean into it and see, why do I feel guilty? You have a learning. Shame does not allow you any learning. It doesn't allow you
Mm,
any forward choice. It's just toxic.
yeah. I think people often are in shame as well, and they think, and what they vocalize is that they feel guilty. So when I look at like a lot of people that I support that maybe have had an abusive parent, and so they've had to, distance themselves and set a really firm boundary, they'll often say they feel guilty about it. And
Mm.
the first thing I have to say to them is like, if you feel guilty, it means that you've done something wrong, right? If you haven't done anything wrong, what you're feeling might be that. I love the word you used, corrosive. Did you use corrosive? Is that what
Mm.
you said? Yeah. You might be feeling shame, and I think that's really, really common, isn't it? Do you find a lot of people that you work with are navigating shame?
They're not even aware necessarily that they have a golden thread that shows up in their 40s or 50s that goes back to something which might be I'm going to do the mark. Can you do air quotes now? Or is it like uncool? Like the the golden thread is that they might not be able to be big or be themselves or take a risk or act their age or feel valuable. But if you, and you know, IFS is just a load of questions often. It's inviting a dialogue between the self of the person and the parts that sometimes take over their lives a bit. So if you ask the right questions and they're starting to get that dialogue, they might go back to a shameful thing that happened when they were 3 or 4. Now, I might hear the story and think that the mum shouldn't have shamed a 4-year-old for doing like something mildly inappropriate. I'd be going, it's lovely. But the boy is not just remembering how he felt when he was confused at the public shaming, but he's feeling it. In this case, the man's in his 50s. I was sitting in his living room and he was able to just feel the shiver down the back of his, and down his back of how he felt as a kid, as his 4-year-old. Um, and he's had that since. So it's a golden thread. He's able to navigate from who he is today and go back. Oh, yeah, somebody did something to put the attention, the spotlight on me, and I felt shame. Oh, I remember in church when I was 4. So that's the beauty of IFS or parts work. It invites a discussion between the self, which is courageous and confident and curious and calm, and parts with an open mind, just following what the parts want you to know. And in the end up you go, oh my goodness, this part showed up when I was 4. It got a bit stuck with that physical discomfort. And I'm now being kind of played by the part or maybe bullied by the part, age 50, whatever.
Mm, I think that's one of the really powerful things about him. And since our sessions, and we're going to get into talk about the sessions I had with you, because I think it's a really good way to, it's a real life case study to help people really understand what happens with IFS. But like one of the things that, and I discovered IFS a number of years ago. So I've like done different things on it, but I'd never worked. I did a couple of one-to-one sessions with a lady a few years ago. But I've never like properly dove into it like we did. But the one thing that I've really taken away, not one thing, I took lots of things, but one of the things is that I can regularly now check in. And one of the first things I'll ask myself is, how old am I right now?
Mm.
And
Mm.
what I realize is when I go into a childlike state, yeah, um, I find it very, very difficult to hide uh, what that young part of me is feeling. Does that make sense? So recognizing I'm in a childlike state and being able to vocalize that's been real game changer to me. To be able to say, I'm sorry, I'm in a childlike state here at the moment. So all, everything that I'm thinking or feeling like I want to say is that of like a fucking 5-year-old,
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 and 5 comes up a lot. I think kids are little learning machines, and their kind of number one job in life, if you think of somebody who's dependent, the number one job in life is to keep themselves safe. So if that's your number one job, you actually are massively aware of what's happening around you. You're really, like even a baby who's in its first few weeks is making intense eye contact. Very many of us will feel drawn into a baby. You might even see it in the tube. You're thinking, this little creature wants to like take in the world and wants to connect and so on. So yeah, as a 4-year-old, you're wanting to be safe and you're wanting to maybe make those connections. If your parents do something that loosens that connection, you're doing everything in your power to reestablish it. You can't make them wrong. You don't have many tools in your toolbox, do you, the 4-year-old? You can't trade in your parents for a more grown-up, rounded couple, maybe. You can't order a new ones on Deliveroo. So yeah, you're a 4-year-old. You make yourself wrong. You don't make your parents wrong because that wouldn't work. You can't be hating your parents as a 4-year-old. You're dependent on them for everything. So you
Mm,
make yourself wrong. I am shameful. I will
mm,
not make this happen again. This shame will be never again will my mum look at me like that and say I've embarrassed her and disgraced her in church.
mm,
It's never going to happen. And you build up all of these protectors, as we say in IFS, to keep that shame at bay. But they stick around. That's the kind of tragicomic of it. You can ask somebody, what age does the part think you are now? And they say 11. And I often ask, what age are you? 52, 49. So yeah, I love how you say that we're all it's a golden thread. It's a golden thread back to where these parts came in to protect us. They stick around, they're doing their best, God love them. Yeah.
yeah. And look, that is one thing that IFS definitely brings you, I think, too, is to love yourself. Again, what we said at the beginning, right? Is that the ability to just be able to, even like, the addictive part of myself, I now realize that I was keeping myself alive, in
Yes.
many ways, putting out the fire, so to speak. Um,
Even the most where the impact is, as I say, catastrophic, or the burden that this part has taken on is huge. It's taking on the burden of keeping you safe, and therefore it will do anything, even disassociation, even turning you to stone, even it's doing what it's meant to do. And once you can, and I'm not saying it's easy, once you can just flip the script and instead of pushing that part away and despising it, if you can with compassion and care, just get to know it better and befriend it. It has a treasure trove of information. It's going to tell you
mm,
why it took on that extreme burden. It can tell you what are the parts it kind of plays alongside with. Like a classic recently is someone saying, in fact, it was the individual who's um, felt shame, that prickly shame at 4 and since. His mum would say to him, you're not very good. But by the same time, she'd say, why aren't you doing better in life?
mm,
So two parts of him were always, I'm going to make a mess of this. And then another part would come in and say, you never do anything. You're always small. Why can't you be more like, So those parts they're playing together. And by the way, a part on its own can make your life, run your life for you, but two parts together who are playing off each other, that's a powerful combination. In the end, you can end up just being like unable to see that it's not even you. It's ancient parts that are kind of running your life. So getting some distance between the self and the part, it's classic. And getting to know them means you get their wisdom, you get their reason for being, you get their strategies, you get their fears, you get their hopes. If you just hate them, you know nothing. You just hate them.
Yeah.
That's it. End of story. Boom. If you get to know them with an open mind, they have all the answers.
Mm, yeah. And that's what we did so much of. How many sessions did I do with you, Kevin? 10?
10, yeah.
We did 10 sessions. And I want to dive into it, right? And I want to share some of the experiences that I had, because having spoke to you, we both kind of feel like it'd be a really good way to show people the power of IFS. But what I do want to say quickly before we do that, I've done one-to-one therapy before, right? I actually, when I was still drinking, when I was about 19, I don't know if I've told you this, when I was about 19, maybe a little bit older than that, I had an experience with, I think it was a counselor, a male counselor it was at the time, who got me to open up. And I opened up, told him some things that I'd experienced, and then he broke down and cried in the session, like, and sort of had to stop the session to gather his thoughts. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, it was an awful experience, right? And any other experience that I've had with one-to-one therapists since then, and I think I'm kind of like this anyway, but I do think that played a role in it. Any experience that I've had since then, as I just aimed to please the therapist. So I don't really get anywhere. I just want to keep the therapist safe and keep them feeling like they're having a really good session. Yeah. So I've kind of been for a number of years where I've just not bothered doing any. But when I found out that you were doing it and that you were doing IFS, I knew that there was a safety around you, and that safety, I was right about it in that in the sessions with you, I never got lost in trying to please you, never got lost in, I say never, there were moments when I would go up into my head and you were able to safely, gently and calmly pull me back into what we were doing, right? So yeah, I just wanted to say that because the safety and everything that you created in the sessions was what enabled me to have some of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had for a long time. So I wanted to say that before.
Wow, thank you. I will also kind of come out and say that sometimes I'm not always gentle, because if people are in their heads, I might interrupt them. Because if you are in the habit of your body, we both love Bessel van der Kolk and The Body Keeps the Score, and the importance of, it's called somatic and all that kind of stuff. But the body absolutely communicates so well. I feel if somebody's escaping all those rich inputs and going to the head, I can go, hey, head, stop. So I'm not always gentle and polite, but that's what you get when you work with people. You find out their comfort with like more direct challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that comes from your safety, I think. And gentle's maybe the wrong word. Softness feels like the wrong word too. I want to try and get the right word, so just bear with me. It is safety. It is safety. It's like I feel like you create an aura where I know I'll be caught. So what I mean by that is like a safety net. If you imagine walking across a tightrope, you know that there's the safety net's under there.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to coax me across, you could gently try and pull me across.
Yeah.
Or you could go, that's enough now, mate. You need to get across the rope, and you could be firm. And I would know that there's that underbelly of safety where it's like, I can let you bring whatever energy you feel I need in that moment, because I'll be caught. Yeah. And like, I don't know if it's a training thing, to be honest with you. I think it's a innate, very natural thing in you, that aura, that energy.
Thank you. I think I did do a few years volunteering with Samaritans. So I'd be in Marshall Street in Soho. People would knock at the door and they'd come in and sit in a small room with me. So I probably heard a lot in my life, and probably maybe unlike your therapist you've talked about before. Yeah, I've heard a lot, and I'm very present with people.
Mm.
So maybe it's come from that. And as I keep saying, I'm 61. You know, I'm not sure I could have done this as a 20 or 30 or even a 40-year-old. I'll be honest. Living
Yeah,
is great. Getting insights wherever you go, it's just amazing. I have a rich life now.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to hand it to you first to say, when you look at the 10 sessions that we did, how would you frame them? What do you think about what do you think about the sessions that we did?
Oh,
I'm sorry, just before I get you to do that, just so everybody knows that's listening, me and Kevin have had a conversation before this where I have said I am more than happy for him to talk about what we explored. And there was a couple of bits where we went in the sessions where I said I'd rather not share that. But so Kevin's very aware. So this is all, yeah, we've given good permission to do this, just so people know that.
consent, very important. But you're somebody who lives your life in public in a way. You feel that by you being honest, and you're brutally honest, you help people take up the challenge. Yeah, so I think you're modeling what you want the world to be like, as I try and do. Just the world needs a lot of help. On a big community needs a lot of help, but you're actually, I see you an uncommon man on a regular basis, where you'll just say what life is like for you, and you do not play around pussyfoot. You just say what, if you've had a shit day, you're going to say it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Radical, man, radical, to just literally drop the mask of what a professional guy who's running a thing for 30 people should be, should be doing. You're just saying, no, you're going to know about
yeah,
me, whether you want to or not. Yeah.
yeah. It's the only way I can be now. I think it's the only way I can be. Yeah,
It's addictive, to be honest and authentic. Everything else feels really second rate once you get your mind around that. So, yeah, what struck me about you is that you just want to learn about yourself, and you just want to make progress, and you have a big tolerance of discomfort to get where you want to go. In fact, you've reinvented yourself quite a few times already.
yeah,
Um, and I think when you talked about being a child, because and you, just people might not know, but the work you do at Uncommon Man, what has men crying their eyes out is when you at breathwork have them imagine their inner child. Many men, especially men who've got children, you know, connect physically with the idea of them just being little boys. They've not been allowed
yeah,
to think back to them being vulnerable and being full of excitement and energy and big things like fear. They don't kind of, you don't be in the middle of a board meeting and think of yourself jumping up on one foot with excitement over some, thing. But when you invite people to reestablish that connection with the part of them that is their inner child, it just makes people feel amazing, including myself. In fact, you saying that the heart that we have inside us today is the same heart we had inside us as a little boy is devastating. It's
mm,
amazing.
mm,
Um, yeah, your visualizations are just amazing around just opening up that two-way conversation between could be a grizzled man, it could be a stressed man, it could be a dad, it could be somebody who's been through lots of stuff, and thinking, yeah, the funny little, stupid little, energetic boy inside of me that only wanted the best for me. It's amazing.
mm. Thank you.
Uh, it's nice. Yeah. I often identify very easily with my inner child. I kind of give it a low 5. like down here, and then a high five to kind of the older version of me that I'm becoming. So I'm very
Yeah.
physically attuned with all of the parts of me, that all of the contributions. So yeah, what struck me about you is that you were able to just take yourself back physically to being that highly sensitive boy, really sensitive, sticking out a bit sensitive. Like, I think you were probably the most inquisitive and most irritating little boy that Britain has ever seen. There'll be a lot of people to back that up as well. Because like you were able to say in the sessions that like there was oh, that's just Josh's way of thinking,
Yeah.
you know. But you were in a maelstrom of activity and not all good when you were young, and I think you were massively sensitive and you were compassionate, and you were a parentified child. You had to do some caring for people. They're all things that now you've reintegrated into your life. So that's what struck me, is that your inner you was people oriented, connected, caring, um, compassionate towards others. And then when you came to big school, I think you called it age 12, that didn't go down very well, um, at all. That's when you felt like you were sticking out. And it's uncomfortable for any child at any age, but 12, there's loads of stuff happening. You don't want to be. I think you said you were othered, which is quite a modern phrase, but I think you felt you had to be small, protect yourself. You mentioned being in a glass cage, and you had to make people like you by being all the things you needed to get them to like you. So you weren't
Mm.
yourself. You were running down that alleyway of how can I hyper vigilant to the people around you, what they needed, what various tribes needed from you, you could deliver. Because you're bright and you're amazingly literate and you're intelligent. So yeah, I can imagine you being able to pull a very effective mask on depending on who you were interacting with.
That was um, one of the big things to come out of the sessions was the realization of how difficult that transfer from just being a child to being like a boy as you begin to transition into your teenage years, where that's where the real sort of the word fight comes into my mind. But like, you've got to fight a little bit if you want to be someone. And when you don't know who you are, and and I was desperately trying to find who I was, and I could only look in relation to who other people saw me as. So I learned this incredible skill to just morph into being exactly what people needed. And it was a real problem in the end in my life. It's been a real problem. And that was a big, big realization. That I coupled with, we also did a session where, before I got to that stage of my life, where I went through some stuff with my dad, and I was in some horrible situations for a young 9-year-old boy to be in. And you were able to show me that I couldn't see that part of myself through a compassionate lens. Like, we were able, I think in a session you did something where you like asked me the question, what more could a 9-year-old boy have done in that situation? And the answer was nothing. There's absolutely nothing he can do as a victim in that situation. But then you were like, I might be remembering this slightly wrongly, but like, you got me to look at the boy that I was, that part of me that I was then, and was like, do you feel that for him? And do you remember? I was like, nah, he should have done this, or he could have done that. And I had this bit of agitation towards that part of myself. I was able to theoretically say that what I did when I was 9 was the only thing that I couldn't have been expected to do anymore. But when you took me to really interact with that part, I was still closer to disgust than I was compassion. And that was like quite a big thing that we were able to work around and able to come back to much more of a loving. Um, I don't know if I fully got there. Did I fully? What do you think? Do you think I fully got there in being able to like truly like have compassion for that part? But I do think that I, even just recognizing that and being able to hold that duality was big for me.
Mhm. I think for a man with kids to be able to look at what you expect your own children to do is a really grounding thing,
Mm,
because we're always going to be easier with those we love than we are with ourselves. And
mm,
to look at the resources of kids and to realize they're under resourced, they're dependent, they're not meant to be, you know, able to handle all the shit that life throws at them.
mm.
I think I think your compassion was definitely growing towards your younger self. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then we got into that bit that we just talked about in the teenage years, and I do think that it was the biggest realization, I think, for me. Actually, there's one other one that we're going to talk about in terms of like that part of me that was like 20 or so. But I really didn't know the deep and profound impact that my teenage years and being that kind of sensitive, hyper vigilant boy, I had no idea of how much that was still ruling who I was today, you know?
I think I definitely heard you say about your how you came across to other people. All the things that make you great now would have landed and made you sensitive about how you came across. You said, I was too much of the time.
Yeah. Wow. That's deep, isn't it?
Mm. I see, feel, experience the world differently to others. That's not really encouraged in society for people to just be themselves and different. There's a lot of pressure to throw up a defense mechanism of whatever it takes to fit in, to be in your tribe, to be, I'm going to go normal again. You felt that pressure. Of course you did. You were young.
Yeah. You know, someone recently said to me, and it really resonated, that I never feel the right way. When I'm supposed to be happy, I'm not happy. When I'm supposed to be sad, I'm not sad. Like I'm never feeling the quote unquote normal emotion. I'm always seeing things different or feeling things different. And what it made me really realize is that we really have created a society and a culture where you have to pick, do you want belonging or do you want to be yourself? Because you won't, it's very, very difficult to get both, isn't it?
Wow. It's very difficult to be yourself even when you're in your 60s. Imagine how difficult it is to, I don't think any child can put being themselves above safety. You can't. Remember in the olden days, to not fit into the tribe meant you were ostracized. It's a really physical, I need to have these connections. I need to feel safe. I think it's probably the same for animals. I don't, not a, an Attenborough, but, sticking out from the group of animals, you're different. You might be left behind. We're not that far away from those really primal feelings that you've got to fit in, you've got to adopt the role, you've got to not look different, feel different. So all of your strengths today, which you reclaimed, as I say, you've reinvented yourself quite a few times. I don't know how you've done it, but you've taken the stuff that was there as a child, and once you had your lost weekend, let's say, which was quite a period, you were able to reconnect with what made you special and different. And now it's who you are.
Mm,
Yeah, there's some stuff around the edges that I think even came through in our sessions where there's days that aren't that easy to have all the parts show up and welcome them all.
mm.
We're all work in progress, aren't we?
Yeah. But you know, that golden thread that you talked about before, you know, that was another thing that we were able to see through the sessions was we discovered that one of like my core values, I guess you'd call it, was to be of service, right? That I love to be of service. And like we were able to realize that even in my drinking days, in the pubs and all of that, I was in my own way still being of service to people, you know. That's I was still living that life. It might have been in the pub by being the joker, by being the clown or whatever, but I was still living in service in that way, you know.
Yeah. Because that was an imprint, a part of you that was necessary and needed as a really young child,
Mm,
possibly. But you were able to talk about how you were looking out for others, how you were caring for others, how you were trying to read the needs of others. Hypervigilance is an amazing skill, and kids have it in spades. They feel everything, of
yeah,
course, because they have to.
it's their only way to survive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's not so good to see that hypervigilance stopping people from growing at the margins of their comfort, decades later. But one of the best, when you see people introduce themselves to the parts that have we say in IFS blended, the part that served you so well as a child, um, and kept you safe and allowed you to be part of the tribe and, maybe stop you being hit and all sorts of stuff. If is denied, it'll still hang around, and it can be interesting to see people really get to know the part and its intent and allow the part to step back. Or even for some people, dial down the parts from like 10 out of 10, always saying, be safe, don't leave your apartment. I'm working with someone at the moment who in January or February wasn't leaving his apartment. Now he is, but all he needed to do was say, I'm a 30x-year-old man. I'm strong, I'm fit. I'm not the 4-year-old.
mm,
Just dialing down, just saying to the part, having that dialogue with the part to say, you can just hang back a bit because actually I have a loving girlfriend. I have a nice life. I'm fit. I'm strong. So you don't need to be like working overtime, mate. And allowing in another part which wanted him to be enjoying life. He's a brilliant guy. So it's just really just having yourself being self-led. That's a IFS bit of jargon, but being self-led.
yeah, yeah. That it's almost crazy that like some of the best advice you can give yourself, or the best thing you can do for yourself, is to just remind yourself who you are, what tools you have at your disposal, you know, like being able to say to yourself, I'm not 15. I have my voice, I have my intellect, I have my strength, I have, you know, the power. I can push back if I want to push back. And like, because I realized what I was doing for a lot of my life was not asking deep questions. Not I got rid of that curiosity because it made people uncomfortable. It made my teachers uncomfortable. It made my friends uncomfortable when I was younger. And now it's like a massive part of who I am because I'm able to bring it back in that new way, you know?
I had a nickname as a teenager, which was interesting because I would just say, "Oh, that's interesting." And it was like it was not sure it was a positive nickname or a negative one, but my curiosity again has kept me employed, kept me interested, and at the moment, I will encourage people to be as curious about their parts as they possibly can, and to not be fearful of anything. So my curiosity is, yeah, a bit like you. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a big part of the sessions that you do. Before we just get, I do want to get to a bit where we just talk about what a session with you looks like, just so people can really understand, because it looks slightly different to what a talking therapy, traditional talking therapy might look like. But there is that, you took me through one, and maybe this will help shape actually how your sessions, what they look like when we do them. We did all of our sessions online, right? So they were just on Zoom. There was one session where I had a massive like breakthrough, right? I'll butcher it. So this is the one where you get me to walk away, right? You describe for everybody listening what you get me to do in that session.
Oh, okay. So the goals of IFS would be to have you get close and befriend your parts so you can really understand what their role is and what they're trying to do for you, their intent. And if they have very extreme roles, like to keep you safe when you don't need to be kept safe, you can kind of allow them to give up those extreme roles and become more attuned to who you are right then. The second thing is having the parts know that you're now a man or a woman and not be as trigger happy, not be as triggered by stuff that happens today that pulls them directly back to the threat of the past. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is to, I mentioned earlier that parts can hunt in pairs, they can bolster each other, they can be in polar opposites. So you can say, most of us will use this phrase, and Dick Schwartz, who founded IFS, he'd have patients saying, one part of me wants to stop binging and purging, another part wants the peace that I get from doing it. So, reharmonizing, I mean, family systems, a family, if there is one outsized personality they have an impact. So the whole of the rest of the family then has to kind of move around. It's all quite the equilibrium, the kind of stuff, it's always changing. Internally, you want to reharmonize. So at least it's self-led. At least the parts are generally playing together rather than at each other's throats. And you can just be peaceful in the middle. So yeah, what I did with you was to a visualization, which again Dick Schwartz did at the international conference last year in Chicago. He did a meditation where you, as yourself, take a short walk, which means parts that you've identified, like a turn to stone, disassociate, or a part that is a people pleaser. All the parts that you might have identified and some you haven't, they stay behind at the start of the walk. So you begin to feel what a self-led existence is like. So the meditation's really beautiful. You will dialogue with your parts, see they're okay to stay behind. And then the idea is that you will just look through your own eyes instead of the parts' eyes, hear through your own ears instead of the parts' ears. They're always looking for threat. And just go forward. And many people will feel really, really lovely and soaring. And it's like transcendental. But when I asked you to leave your parts behind, or whether they would be willing to stay behind, they didn't want to let you go. Do you remember which parts were not happy with you just being yourself?
And I feel like the part that really stuck with me was like the part of me that was who I was just before I quit drinking. So like I had a skinhead. I was, I don't know, like 22, 23, like angry, ready to sort of fight everyone. That's the part that I really remember sticking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now you were dialoguing with it, and it was saying, "You're going to muck this up. I can't let you go on your own. You're crazy, man. It'll all come to shit, basically."
Yeah. 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 You'll fuck it up. You're going to mess this up. And I've got to be there because we're going to have to get through it because you're going to burn it all to the ground. And you won't be able to deal with it. Yeah.
Mm. So there's a part from the past saying, I run with you. I'm with you. I've got to be with you all the time, because this other part is going to just turn the whole thing to, yeah, you're not safe on your own kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was session 7, where you then got to know very intimately the skinhead part of you that kind of got you through your 20s, I think.
Yeah. Like late teens, early 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the end, you saw yourself not as dominated by that part, the skinhead part, I think you called it. But you were, at the end of session 7, you were saying, I'm shoulder to shoulder with it.
Yeah. 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 And I tell you what, I have been ever since, man.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah. Honestly, the fighter in me, right, which is what that part of me was. That part of me was like ready for a fight. And I mean, what it often meant was is that I got beat up because I was small, skinny, but he was a fighter and he was willing to fight for whatever he believed in. And a lot of what he believed in was ridiculous, right? But he was ready to, go to battle for it.
Yeah.
And I'd sort of lost that fighter in me, because I couldn't, I couldn't let that part of me have any say, because I felt like if it did, what would happen is we'd end up having massive fights with everybody, right? But being able to now be shoulder to shoulder with it, like I feel like it's helped spearhead some of the like social action work that I'm doing since,
Mm.
like it's made me really go, nah, man, if we fucking believe in this, let's stand up and believe in it and do it. And like, I can be to that person. Remember, we're not 21 and in a panic and need to fight everybody. We don't need to do that, but we can have a bit of fight in us.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? And it's a part of me that I've really grown to love. And that session 7, if that's what you're saying it was, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, this is a part of me that I need to get rid of. This is not a good part of me. It's a very dangerous and scary part of me. Whereas now I feel very shoulder to shoulder with it most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. That idea that the parts, if you take them from their extremes and just get to know them, that they take on, and you don't know in advance what their original role would have been. Had you not had some life shocks, that original role might have been completely different, but it went to an extreme. But when you got to know it over session 7, you were saying it's an energy. It's a pure energy that you reclaimed. And you also said it feels separate uh, to yourself. It wasn't blended with you. It wasn't a part of you that you hated. It was a blend. It wasn't blended. It was as I say, a shoulder to shoulder energy that you can lean into and gives you that amazing. You just work very hard. Like that comes from somewhere. And if
Yeah.
it's a skinhead part, you want to call it that, because it makes you show up, it makes you take risks, it makes you work like a dog, it keeps you always present. At the end of a day, like when I see you every month for your men's work session, your energies always soar during those sessions. Yeah. So you reuse you yourself, Josh, as a really great relationship by going into the dark place of that part and reestablishing how it can serve you. Yeah, it's gone from leading you, and now it's a shoulder to shoulder. That's exactly parts work in a sentence. I love that, how you described it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is it. That's what the session did. It made it, the sessions, the run of sessions that we had, it enabled me to meet with and get comfortable with and then live shoulder to shoulder with all of the parts that I've got, some of which I already knew and loved, some of which I didn't know I knew and didn't know I loved, and like
Mm.
that's what the sessions did. And just to maybe to come to a place where we're starting to wrap this up here, what I loved about the sessions as well is that I would come in and then you would like gently create a space for me to drop into my body. And I almost did most of the sessions every time for the whole hour, eyes closed and just gently being guided by you to these different spaces within me, you know?
That's a big part of IFS. And I've said that your body work, if you like, just lying on your back and breathing, that's ancient wisdom that comes through. That's real stuff. That's real messages. So yeah, the body is the starting point. You're always asking in IFS, where do you feel this part? And having that nice relationship with it. It's not too heady. None of this stuff makes sense intellectually, you know, like we're not a 4-year-old now, but if you can feel that it's the 4-year-old that gives you the shiver in your back of shame, you're halfway there. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much body centered, and I remember you with your eyes closed a hell of a lot. I think both of us, I closed my eyes a lot as well to get into my body, to be in self mode. So I think we were often, you'd have your face straight against your camera. So you're like really up to get. I don't know, you put your head on your hands and I'd see basically the whole screen was your face with your eyes closed.
Or you, man.
It's quite an intimate thing in a way, although it was remote. We were very connected. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were able to do that thing, you know, that you talked about of, I'd give you an answer. I can almost look back now, like with a little bit of a nostalgic laugh at the times when I would give you an answer and you'd go, sounds a bit heady. And a bit of me would be like, oh, fuck off. Just accept it. Take it. Because you know what I mean? Like when I knew you were right and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to, all right, let me dive in and find the truth. You know what I mean?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. We live in our heads, and it's not a great messenger. It's not as clear as it needs to be, your head. We overthink, most of us, don't we? We love to overthink and complicate our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like, you know, as a sensitive person, intuitive person as I am, and I'm pretty sure you are, I think that's part of what I struggle with in the world, you know, is being around groups of people that are all just up in their head and ignoring the heart, ignoring the body, you know, and I find that exhausting. And, you know, not to slander anyone or any type of therapy, but I find a lot of talking therapy, it's like it takes me round in circles of stuff that I rationally know, you know? Like, you can take that example that we'd used of my dad, which is like, do you think that boy could have done any more? No. No, I don't think he could have done. I don't think he could have done any more. Do you think he did his best? Yes, I think he did his best. You know, all of that, like you do all of that, and I can give all the answers. I know all the answers rationally, logically. I know all of them. What you do with the IFS stuff is you drop me into my body and go, all right, we know logically and rationally what was going on, but what's the truth? And then you drop into your body and you go, okay, the truth is a bit more nuanced than that. The truth of how I feel and see it is a bit more nuanced. And actually then when you discover that truth, then you have the chance to, change is the wrong word. It's almost like, it's like evolve, isn't it? It's like revolutionize it, because you're not just going, oh, this is what I thought and it was wrong, so this is the new thought. There's a change in your body as a result, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, people can die living their lives as ordained by very, very long established patterns of thinking and talking and feeling. And just to get in touch with those afresh through IFS is just amazing. As I say, if I live another 20 years, my next 20 years will be, I believe, my happiest. That's an amazing position to be in. And it's trying to be self-led rather than being yanked here and there by quite old, overworking parts of me. So yeah, self energy is where you are. You are in your self energy when you're in front of people, helping them, which is your real calling. I understood from our sessions just how tiring it can be for you to kind of be in the world, but not doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I find the world exhausting. But when I'm doing what I love, I'm free. Yeah.
We all benefit. We all benefit, Josh.
Yeah. Hi. Before we finish, Kevin, because this has been an incredible conversation, there's a part of me that is fucking desperately hoping that whatever those technical issues are not going to affect the rest of this podcast. But if people do, I'm sure that, like, you know, I can't recommend you highly enough, but if people did want to come and find you, where's the best place for them to come and find you?
I have a website which I've designed myself, and my T-shirt which I've designed myself. I didn't see myself as creative, but I've really dropped some of those feelings. So nobadparts.coach. No Bad Parts is a philosophy, if you like, of IFS. And I love how revolutionary it is to say, even the part of you, if it was maybe drinking alcohol first thing in the morning, it's not a bad part. It's a part that needs to be understood. It's a part that wants to be listened to. Listen, love it, understand what it's about. And that's, you know, from your body, as you say, that's where you'll get the treasure. Hating it, hating yourself, no, that's not a way forward. That's just going around in a circle. So yeah, nobadparts.coach is my website. And there's a contact form. And that's all people need to know, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'll put all of that in the show notes, and so everybody can find that below wherever they're listening to this. Kevin, I absolutely loved it. I've loved this conversation. I love you to bits. I think you're an incredible human being. I think that anybody that gets the opportunity to work with you will be absolutely incredibly grateful, as I am. And I'm convinced it won't be the last time I work with you. I'll be back. And yeah, just thanks, mate, and thanks for coming on. Any parting things you want to say before we close?
Wow. One of the things that Dick Schwartz has in the back when he's giving sessions is it's never too late to come back to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's never too late to come back to yourself. Yeah, I love that. Love it. Kevin, thank you so much. I'm going to close this now, and I can't wait to share it with people, so thank you.
Thank you, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
I did tell you it would be dysfunctional, so thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.